Hello everyone, my name is Blackwatch, welcome to another episode of How to Play, and in this week's episode we're looking at Shurat Kesikbayev, also known as Fuze. Christ, this guy gets overlooked something fierce. I've been playing him an absolute ton the last few seasons. He's very fun, his gadget's simple to understand but has a lot of complexities and ways to use it that are far beyond the surface, so get ready for some tips. So, he's a 3 armor, 1 speed attacker from Uzbekistan, actually. He was born in the Uzbek SSR before the fall of the Soviet Union, and he actually moved into Russia, which is why he is fighting for the Russian Spetsnaz Alpha Group. And he has 3 primary weapons. The 6P41 LMG is an LMG. I can't really say much more about that. The AK-12, which is the one I think you should be taking over the LMG and the other option. Because it's insane. It's a very, very good gun, especially on console where the recoil's not as harsh. I love this gun. It's just such a comfortable gun to use and very, very strong. And his last primary weapon is the ballistic shield. Don't take the ballistic shield. It's just not good at anymore, guys. It's really not good. It's just terrible. This is why the How to Play Shields video in 2022 has really taken a long time, because shields are terrible now. But anyway, yeah, avoid this unless you want to really challenge yourself. But if you want to make that challenge slightly less difficult, your secondary options have one clear standout. The PMM is an absolute beast of a pistol. It does have lower capacity and higher damage, but that capacity is still higher than 1911. I really recommend this gun. I like it a lot. I'd say it's probably my favourite pistol in the game. And the other option is the GSH-18. This one is like any other high cap, low damage pistol. The difference is it has the worst iron sights in the game, bar none when it comes to pistols. So I honestly would say just don't use this at all. Secondary gadgets, breach charge and hard breach charge. I usually would go for the hard breach because I like to use Fuze as a hatch operator quite a lot. But breaches are still good. They still have some use for Fuze. Not quite as much as breaches for other teammates who are working with you, but you know, it's still an option if you want to take that. His unique gadget is the APM-6 Matryoshka, also known as cluster charge. So this thing, he has 4 of them, and they shoot 6 grenades out of every charge when it's detonated. They go out one after the other, thunk, 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 thunk. Probably one more thunk. And they go from right to left, and that's from your point of view, not from the enemy's point of view. So when you put this on a floor, it goes out right to left, and it will detonate in the same order that they come out at, with the same delay between each one actually being shot out of the gadget. The blast radius per grenade is 4.2 meters, and that will inflict lethal damage on 2 to 3 armors for up to 1.2 meters from the center of the explosion, and up to 2 meters for 1 armors. So it is a pretty nasty gadget. 2 meters from it you're going to get taken out if you're a 3 speed. Scary stuff. And it will also deal massive damage if you are outside of that lethal damage range and are still inside the blast radius. You're not going to walk away from this with just a little hit. It is nasty. This thing can also penetrate any surface that's normally destructible by hard breach. So if you want to go through a hatch, if you want to go through a reinforced hatch specifically, if you want to go through a reinforced wall, you can now do that with Fuze. You never used to be able to back in the old days, but now he's become a lot more versatile because of this very reason. And in terms of his strengths, excellent loadout. I mean, I really can't have any complaints about the options that are available to you. Obviously there are the ones that stand out from the others, but it's just a great loadout overall. Very, very good secondary gadget synergy. The fact that Fuze tends to be more of a vertical play operator in terms of actually putting the gadget down and launching them from ceiling to floor, it makes him very helpful as a hatch operator as well. He essentially becomes a sort of hybrid hard breach destruction op. It's very, very nice. His disrupts tend to deal with fixed setups very, very well. If you have operators who've created new setups that wouldn't otherwise exist for the defending team, things like Amira, things like just anyone putting down new barricades, so take Azami for example, take anyone using deployable shields in a certain way. All of these operators get dealt with quite well by Fuze as long as he's got the right angles to deal with them, but it's the kind of thing that you can easily flush someone out with his gadget. He fills numerous roles. He's excellent for team play because he can enable pushes, so if you've got someone dug in, if he's communicating with his team, launching a charge at someone who's dug in will give you enough of a moment whilst they run away that your team can take advantage of the window you've created and move forward. And in terms of his weaknesses, not really many. He's slow. He's not always presented with many options in terms of where he can actually use the gadget, because some sites are just better than others when it comes to this sort of stuff. But it's obviously still better than it used to be, because now you can go on any reinforced surface as well. He's at very high risk of being flanked during deployment, so Fuze tends to be two operators essentially in a push rather than someone who can really work on his own. Because the gadget is noisy, the gadget is going to tie you down to staring at the floor or at walls, whatever the case, and it's going to leave you vulnerable whilst you're going around putting them down. It tends to be the case that an enemy team, once they hear a Fuze is operating, will send a roamer to go and try and deal with him, or if the roamer's already out on the move, it's more than likely that he's going to try and intercept. So it is where it does help to have another teammate with you to actually play this operator. And the gadget has a very distinctive noise, and that very distinctive noise can sometimes take away opportunities that you would have been able to take advantage of, because folk will know, they'll hear it, and they'll just move away. But we've got some ways of working around that, so we'll cover that in just a few minutes. In terms of tips and tricks, consider placing them onto common spots, so areas that ideally you'll have droned out, but also areas that you as a defender would likely use if you were holding on site or even holding off site, just as a sort of place that you like to go to. Think about those common spots, particularly if they're dense with either people or gadgets, or even better, both. And if you hear them running away from that spot, don't detonate it straight away, because you're kind of asking for it to then become useless. Instead, leave it and just wait for a little bit of time. And you'd be surprised, especially if you get it down early in the round, the number of times that people will go back to that spot because they'll have assumed that you've just picked it up and moved on. The other thing you can do to try and deal with this common, oh no, they're running away type tactic, is you can actually place a charge down and then move to the spot that you would expect them to retreat to, and instead of detonating and then moving and then placing, you're going to plant, move to the next spot, and then literally crouch down, aim down at the spot that you're going to put it down on, and straight away detonate, immediately plant the next charge. The time that you're going to save and the panic you're going to create when they run from one charge straight into another one that's just started to detonate, it's glorious, man. Honestly, it's really, really good. This catches people out more than pretty much any deployment of a Fuze, so get it done. You can work quite well with IQ if you're really feeling fancy. If IQ sees someone on a drone, for example, or I say on a drone but on cameras, then the Fuze can take advantage by putting a cluster charge down, covering the exit that he's going to go to, and shabingo, grenades raining on top of your phone whilst you're trying to listen to the sweet sounds of ambient noise in the corner of a cafe or something. I don't know. But hopefully you'll blow them up, and that's what you're really looking for when you're playing as Fuze. Drone spots out in advance if you don't have the likes of an IQ, or even ask your teammates to drone those spots out, because it's always going to be beneficial for you to actually know where people are, and you want to use the information you gather from those drones to inform the decisions you make, like where am I going to put the charge, am I going to detonate the charge, all this sort of stuff. It all comes together. Eventually you'll get to the point where you kind of just know instinctively where people are going to move to, depending on what site it is and where on the site that you're targeting. But it still helps to have that hard intel that's really informing your decisions then and there in the moment. Remember that the grenades fall from right to left. You want to use this to dictate movement. So, best example I can give, if someone's on the left of the charge and they try to run to the right of the charge to escape it, that's the ideal scenario, because the likelihood is the time that it takes for them to go from, oh no, cluster charge is going off, to actually running away, the grenade that has already landed that's on the opposite side of where they were wanting to be, or sorry, where they were in the first instance, is now going to detonate right as they reach it. It's nasty stuff. Try to be thorough when you're clearing through different buildings and sites before you actually go for your gadget. You want to be pretty clear with this, especially if you're on your own, because you are going to be vulnerable and you're going to definitely get into the zone when you start putting charges down. It's easier said than done to always have full situational awareness. It's better just to take those risks and minimize them as much as you can through having a teammate with you, having areas covered by a flank watch teammate, so getting a nomad to put stuff down for you, gridlock, whoever. Gridlock, especially now that she's been buffed and has an extra canister. All these things are going to add up in the long run. You want to maybe work with a teammate who can open holes and abuse the disruption that you create as you set charges. So Sledge is a good example. If you're going to set the charge and set it off, then he can open a hole and try and watch for people who are moving around. But also, if you're wanting to, and you could do this with your breach charge or with a teammate doing it, you could sledge or breach or buck or whatever. You want to basically just make a hole above an area where you know someone is, and that's going to cause them to move, at which point you've made a prediction based on their knowledge that you have as a defender in terms of your pathing and how you would react to that situation, and you pre-place a cluster charge on that spot so that they make the breach or you make the breach with a breach charge, and then you detonate the cluster charge so they essentially run into your explosives unknowingly. That's the ideal scenario. If you're wanting to use your gadget as an anti-gadget, it's a perfectly valid way of doing it. There's certain sites like Consulate Garage and Chalet Garage, both of them really work well with a Fuze who's willing to put himself in that risky situation to actually get rid of the gadgets from walls that would otherwise be more difficult to do, especially if they're banning Maverick or if you can't get Thatcher, all these kind of things that would work against you. Fuze can flex into that role. You want to consider doing some combo moves. I already mentioned the sledge and breaching charge one, but there's other stuff that you can do. There's ways that you can work with other operators, whether it be them using the frag grenades or Capitao burning people out of certain spots so that they're then forced to run into your explosives. It's all nasty, disgusting, war crimey stuff, but it works and it can be very effective. Don't place a cluster charge on a door barricade unless you're doing it from a rappel. This isn't an absolute set in stone rule, but in the same way that I would tell people not to place a breaching charge on a door barricade with their toes nicely exposed, I'll say the same for a cluster charge. You do not want to get your J's destroyed by a nasty castle who's sitting waiting and listening on you. Consider placing your stuff on walls or ceilings to cover entrances back to the site. This is more for the post-plant, so if you're in a post-plant situation and you want to be able to take advantage of people coming back onto site, having been roaming, put it down on a little wall that's going to cover that entrance and set it off and watch them die, or watch them be slowed down at least. And the additional way you can do this is by placing your cluster charge above a set diffuser. It's then going to kill anyone who does go for the diffuse. Or the disable, of the diffuser. So it's another option to get someone killed, hopefully. And the last thing, keep your team informed as much as possible. The chaos that you generate as a Fuze is an excellent tool to unseat entrenched defenders, and it's something that you want your team to be able to take advantage of as much as possible. You can only do so much with your gadget on your own. That's the same for any operator in the game, but for someone like Fuze who creates opportunities so readily, it's like trying to play a Mont without a headset. It just doesn't work. You're not going to get the results you're looking for. Communication is absolutely key, and it will unlock a different level of skill with this operator for you if you make sure that you got your goddamn headset turned on. Right. Another video done, boys. Happy Sunday. when this comes out, and if it's not Sunday, happy whatever day you're currently dealing with, my G. And I will see you in the next one. Double batching you, everybody. Bye bye.